Okay. Good evening,
Hello.
lady.
Good evening. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, nice to see you.
Hello, hello.
Hi, hi, hi. Okay, here we go. Getting started. Okay, here we go.
Did we finish all of these Gilon yesterday?
Yeah, I think we finished the whole thing.
Yeah, it was
No, maybe there's something left over. Let me check. Let me just check that for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I thought about it yesterday. I couldn't really understand like the reason of a problem. It would be a problem if you Talid got Tzitzit got Asul and you're working out, going from one domain to another on Shabbat. It's just regular clothing is not a problem. Why would?
Because it's not clothing.
But we said that
Yeah.
the older generation, that's what they wore. That was their clothing.
Right, but the tzitzit is not kosher, so what kind of clothing is that? What do you need it for? There's no
For
purpose.
us, for our generation.
Huh?
For our generation.
No, I'm saying the tzitzit is not kosher.
treat them
So
like
you're
clothing.
not allowed to wear that. So how can you? So it's like you're carrying it.
But what if it doesn't become like regular clothing? Like even if it's not kosher as a tzitzit, but it's still kosher. I mean, it's still regular
Yeah.
clothing on you.
The clothing is fine. We're not talking about clothing. We're talking about the tzitzit itself.
Just
The
strings.
tzitzit, yeah, that's the problem. Maybe you understand it wrong. You misunderstood.
But if you have a type of clothing that's not tzitzit but hanging, you're allowed to go out like Shabbat with this, right?
I'm sorry. What's that again? Your type of,
You're wearing the regular some clothing
yeah.
like a scarf, right? Like
Okay.
a big scarf, not tzitzit, and it has those strings, on the bottom.
Okay, yeah.
Be okay, right? To work on Shabbat like this.
Yeah, but that's a part of the beged. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it's made. But here, these strings, have nothing, no purpose. They have, just
Also, the purpose changed. That's why it's a problem.
the purpose of those strings is only mitzvah. There's no other purpose there. It's not for any other, thing there. That's what he's trying to say. So since the only purpose is mitzvah, and you're not doing the mitzvah, so now you're carrying.
It is not like a fashion, right? It is not a fashion. It has a purpose, and therefore you have to wear it right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly the point. But the truth is, there's also an opinion that said, we saw yesterday, that it is sort of a fashion, like there's sort of certain beauty there. But bottom line is, that halacha is not like that. In other words, we say that it's not really for beauty, it's for mitzvah. So once you're not doing the mitzvah, you're carrying it. The truth is, that these halachot are not so logically clear, and so it doesn't surprise me that you don't get it, because there's no way to get it from your own, sechel, from your own mind. It's a tradition, it's something that we have passed down. From God, it's like, so, yeah. Once you understand that, you understand there's really nothing to argue with. There's nothing, in other words, just accept it as it is. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't, that's why I used to have a rabbi, who, when I used to ask questions like this, he would tell me like, he would get mad at me, he would say, get used to it. You know what I mean? So what he meant to say was, like, why you have to ask so many questions, just like take it as it is, like what, why do you think you're so smart? You can challenge the Torah, challenge the words of God, like what, why do you have to digest everything in your mind, so much like that? It's not from our minds, it's from Hashem, this thing, So, what do we have? Here's the thing, right? By the way, something interesting about that. There's two different kinds of things the sages say, there's the decrees of the Torah, and there's the decrees of the sages, So when it comes to the decrees of the Torah, there's no point in, like challenging it, and saying, oh, well, I don't understand why, Okay, you don't understand, but, Hashem made it this way.
Right.
So what's your business? Like, what do you have to put your 2 cents in there? What's it to you? That's one thing. But if it was something which is decreed from the rabbis, so there has to be a logic to it. You know what I mean? So there you should investigate and say, what was the reason why the rabbis made this decree? What's going on? There you should. But when it comes to the laws of Hashem, who can go into the depths of the laws of Hashem? You know what I mean? Who can?
Right.
This is the thing. 2 different things there, 2 different approaches. Okay, that's an interesting idea. However, a lot of people can't get used to that concept. It's a little bit of a problem for them. I don't understand. Okay, you don't understand. Okay, swallow it. Okay. That's why the Jewish people said "Naseh v'nishma." First we'll do it, and then we'll try to understand it. What I mean? That's the whole thing. And that's what really helps you, by the way. If you actually do it, then you'll understand it better too. Yeah. Okay. It's a whole discussion, because once everything becomes, dependent on your logic, what happens is that you can say, well, I don't accept this. Like, I don't understand. I won't do it. Okay. Well, that's not the way it works.
So there's a reason for it. It reminds me of the Parshat of today, where Jacob touches Benjamin instead of the older child. And he said, I know it's the younger that I'm touching, but there's a reason behind it. So it's not that he didn't know why,
Yeah.
but so it's similar. So they know there's a reason behind they have that.
Right. So there, it wasn't from Hashem. It was his own. He figured it out on himself. I mean, but yeah. I mean, so there, he asked him, "Why are you doing this?" He should have asked him, because it wasn't normal, apparently. You know what I mean? When it comes something's commanded from Hashem, well, what's there to ask? What are you really asking? Like, oh, why is it this one? Well, okay, well, not everything you're gonna find out the reason why. By the way, there's also machloket between the Tur and the Rambam regarding this. The Rambam says you should try to look for the logic in the mitzvot to find out the reasons. It's a mitzvah to do so, to justify them. But the Torah says no. These are decrees of Hashem. What logic are you looking for? What's there to look for logic? So the truth is, that the truth is somewhere between the Rambam and the Torah. They're both true in a sense. In other words, in the end, bottom line is you have to accept it the way it is, and that's it. But there's also what the Rambam says is true. What does that mean? If you can find with your own intellect, some reason for the mitzvah to justify it, there's a mitzvah there,
Yeah. But
You know what I mean? This is the book that he wrote, the Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam. This book that he wrote is about this topic. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever read this book, Moreh Nevuchim. So it's called in the Guide to the Perplexed. In English, that's how they translate it. Right. So this book, gives reasons for the mitzvot. By the way, a lot of people, don't like this book because they say it's like, yeah, exactly, like very, and the reason why they don't like it is because these reasons are coming from the Rambam. These reasons are not coming from Hashem. You know what I mean? So they think that, sometimes the Rambam missed the mark. Like, in other words, what makes you think that this is the reason for the mitzvah? Maybe it's not like that. Who told you?
No,
You know what I mean?
Rabbi, it's just a few reasons. Of course, Hashem's infinite.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. That's the whole
You
point.
can never grasp everything. but
Exactly.
At least some of it.
Some you can grasp, but the problem is that sometimes when people give reasons for the mitzvot, you know what happens?
They won't
People, yeah, that's also true. But you know what it is? People sometimes get angry because they say, I don't see it that way. To me, this sounds like, a lack of belief, lack of emunah. You know what I mean? So not everybody digests it the same way. So you know what it is, right? That everybody has a different approach in life, a different thought pattern. And that's the way it is, So some Jews like it, some Jews don't like this, but Hashem made what he made, and that's it. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right.
The end of the day, That's what we're left with, well, that's pretty much, that's exactly what the Torah is saying, at the end of the day, it's a decree of Hashem. So what are you asking about? Okay, well, it's whole discussion, this whole thing, it's a whole philosophical kind of discussion. Okay, let me just get some water over here. Okay, so getting back to what we said, where did we leave off last time? Let me just make sure I got the good place. Yeah, it seems like we didn't do Gimel. We have one more there to do.
Did you say?
Yes. So it says it like this: Garsina and Besot Perek Kometz Rabbah. We're again in Menachot, right? Lamed Zayin Amud Bet. We have a Gemara over there. Ravina Havaka Azil Batre Demo Berabashe B'Shabbatah. Right. So this rabbi was walking after this rabbi on Shabbat, the Shabbatat the Rigla. Right. So this was the Shabbat of the Regel. We'll see what that means. It could be that it was like a gathering, for Torah study or something like that, or it was just a holiday or whatever. So what happened was that his tzitzit got cut. So he didn't tell him nothing, didn't say anything. Mom's the word, right? Okay. When it comes to his house, so he tells him from there it got cut. So he says, if you would have told me over there where it got cut, that place, I would have thrown it off, taken it off, something like that. So Gemara asks, wait a second, didn't this rabbi say, that kavod habriot, what does that mean? The respect of people, right? Their dignity, human dignity, is a great thing. Why? Because it pushes aside even a negative commandment of the Torah. So what does that mean? It's not human dignity to take off your clothing and run around naked, right? As we said, right? We started talking about that. Right? Huh? Okay, good. Yeah, okay, good. Let's see where that goes, right? So it says you don't ask questions like this in the middle of the, you got to finish the whole thing, right? Then you can already dissect a little bit. So it says ושדוחת לא תעשה שבתורה, תרגם הרב bara sheba, ולאו דלא תאסור. So he says, what negative commandment does this push aside? Right? That we talked about here. So he says, the negative commandment is lo tasur. That's what we're talking about. Where is this, by the way? This is the commandment. Devarim Yud Zayin, famous Chumash. What is it talking about there? It's talking about you have to listen to the words of the rabbis. Whatever they say, you got to listen to them. So there we learn that we're obligated to listen to the words of the sages. The Torah obligates us to do that. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? When you transgress the words of the rabbis, you are also transgressing the words of the Torah, because the Torah commands you to listen to them. You know what I mean? So some say, Mehatam Amarle my datech l'shmishte gadol kodabriot shedoche et lo taaseh shebetorah lo tirgem arav sheba velav hachi lo tasu achanami Carmelit derabanan hi. Oh, so that's the answer to your question, right? That where were they walking over here? They were not walking in the public domain, so it's not correct. They're walking Carmelit, which is derabanan. You see, right? So you go on a little bit, you get the answer. You know? So not good to ask these questions, you know, because otherwise you say, well, okay, well, I don't know. Let's think about that. You can stay there for like a half hour, you know, thinking about it. In one more sentence, you would have had the answer.
But a related
Yeah.
question to that,
Yeah.
related question.
Yeah.
If he did not know, for him it's unintentional. What the other person gets is not correcting his Jew. Is he?
Right. So that's exactly what he's saying, right? The reason why I didn't correct you is because I had a reason not to correct you. I didn't want you to look like a fool, you know, walking around naked. You know what I mean? And that's allowed to do that. That's the whole thing, right? That's exactly what I told him.
But he's not transgressing a rabbinical prohibition because he doesn't know.
No. What we're saying is like this, you know, that he didn't tell him because even if he would have known, he wasn't obligated to take it off. So there's no reason to tell him.
He's not obligated.
Yeah, because, you know, what, walk around naked? What?
But they always say
Walk around like, you know, you're some kind of, you know, rock star, you know, what kind of things that?
But we just said that rabbinical is the same as just transgressing the Torah because we're supposed to listen to the rabbis.
Oh, yeah. So that's exactly the point, right? When it comes to this particular prohibition of the Torah, the dignity of humans pushes it away.
Is there a general category?
Huh?
Is there a general category of transgressions that could be pushed aside for this reason? Or is it just a case by case?
Anything which is rabbinical.
Anything.
That's what we're saying, yeah.
And if it's
Not tasur.
human dignity versus rabbinical degree.
Right. So human dignity comes first. Right. That's the whole thing. Exactly.
So no embarrassment.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to embarrass somebody in public, you know, like that, you know, walking around like you know, some rock musician, you know, some concert, you know, they took off their shirt, you know, walk around naked like, oh, what well, you know, that's what we are, the Jewish people. You know, we're like these people. You know, Shem Menachem, right? Okay. So let's go.
Just to instill it in my mind. So if I see someone in Shabbat
Yeah.
on LED lights and they're not doing shinui, I should not correct them because again, human dignity in this case.
Well, I don't see any human dignity in this case, but honestly, you know, this issue of doing it with a shino is just a chumrah anyway. You know, it's like a safeguard, you know, for Shabbat's sake. You know, it's the truth is, if it wasn't really something Shabbat, I wouldn't even tell people to do a shinoi.
So is it as a transgression or not a transgression?
We have to talk about that, but Hashem, we'll get into that. You know, after the class, ask me. Remind me. We'll get into that whole story, right? Okay, so that's a different story, because otherwise people are not going to understand what we're talking about. You know, it's going to be confusing. Okay, right. So as we said, right, that that's the whole thing. So Rabbi Magid writes this. You know, yeah. So it was Carmelit. So it was the Rabbanan. What's a Carmelit? Like a forest, for instance, right? It's not a public domain. A forest. You know, things like this. You know, it's like open field, but it's not a place where people pass by. You know, like large numbers of people. So that's Carmelit, or like, for instance, you know, like a lake, you know, or whatever. It's also or an ocean, right? Carmelit, that's what it's called.
Near
Carmelit.
ocean or the ocean itself?
The water itself, right? It's Carmelit, that's for sure. Yeah, Carmelit. It's not a place where people pass by, obviously, right? Unless you know how to walk on water, right? We don't want to get into that stuff now. We don't want to get into that.
Is that about the
Okay.
600,000 people walk past by or something?
Yeah, it has to be, you know, that's a, you know, this whole discussion there, right? We're going to get to the Hashem, laws of Shabbat. We're going to discuss that. If you have any questions, I can answer you, you know, just practical questions, whatever. But anyway, so the answer is like this, right? That, as he says, it's Carmelit. And this is the reason why I didn't rebuke him, you know? So he waited till they got home, you know, whatever. And they told him, he says, oh, you poor thing, you know, your tzitzit broke, but I didn't want to embarrass you in public. You know, so I just left you alone. Okay, so he writes it in Hilchot Shabbat. Yosef, Hilchot Tzitzit also writes this. B'Shem Ritva, the name of the Ritva. So it says like this, Maran, right? That it seems like even if he knows that he's standing Carmelit, shebesha'a she'yatza bo pasul haya. Oh, but the time that he went out from the house, it was pasul. Lo kansinan there. We don't punish him. Because he didn't check. He didn't check it. Even if you can tell me he should have checked before he went out, Tzitzit is okay. But lo batko, he didn't check it. Lo kansinan there. We don't punish him. What does it mean punish him? Punish him how? By telling him, okay, take off your shirt, come on. Let's go, let's see that chest, Give me a break, what are you talking about? Right? Can't see that, right? Come take, as they say, America, give me 50, yeah, go down, do 50 push-ups, let's see you, Okay, right? Can't see that.
Sure, you don't have a second profession.
I have many professions, but they're old ones. They're the older ones, right? So that's I was never in the army. Don't worry. So all right, that's makom deika kavod habriot. So it says right that because of kavod habriot, dignity of human beings. You know what I mean? Okay. V'chol sheken delo hashkachan shechivu chachamim libdok. All the more so the rabbis didn't obligate him to check. So it says it's possible to say that which we said in Gemara, that you don't have to take it off. Maybe it's only talking about their talitot, right? Why is that? Oh, so you know what it was? Those talitot were actually covering their body. Like in other words, it was like a jacket basically for them. In other words, if they would take it off, they'd be naked. But today, if you take off your talit, are you naked? No, you're wearing a suit. So then that may be different. It's not embarrassing to walk around in your suit. So that's a different story altogether. You know what I mean? So if they would take it off in the street like that, you look like a rock singer, right? Whatever, right? But when it comes to our talit, we don't wear it as a clothing. It's just for prayers. You know what I mean? It's not the same thing. Even if you take it off, there's no problem. Who's gonna think anything, right? They're gonna think, okay, he finished his prayers. Okay, took off his talit. What's the big deal?
So what are you to do, Rabbi? You can't
so there you should tell him to take it off.
and throw it on the floor?
Whatever, yeah, what's the big deal? So just put it somewhere. And then come pick it up after Shabbat, whatever, whatever has to be done. Right? Yeah. So right, so it says so it's, even if it's Carmelit, which is the Rabbanan, Poshto, you gotta take it off, as we said, right? Even if Sal, it became Pasul, you cannot wear it, you gotta take it off. So now look what it says, right? Another way of looking at it. So it says maybe even with our talit, there's some kind of a disgrace there. Take it off like that. What's the reason why? If you have to take it off in the street, look what it says, something interesting, right? That maybe the rabbis didn't make any differentiation. In other words, since in those days it was a disgrace to take off your talit because you'd be naked. So then maybe they didn't really, take into consideration what's going to be in the future. So therefore, they absolved everybody. Regardless of whether you're going to be naked or not. In other words, they make like a general rule for everybody. So therefore, if you learn it like that, then he doesn't have to take it off. Because the rabbis didn't obligate him to do so. But where? Only in Carmelit, right? If you're in a Rishut Harabim, that's a different story. As you said, right? It's Karet. That's a different story. Right? But here's the thing, that the truth is it's not so pashut, that it's Karet today, because there are a lot of people who say that this poskim will say that today we don't have Rishut Harabim. It doesn't exist in our times for all kinds of reasons. A whole discussion about that in Halakha. But the truth is that we are machmir, when it comes to Shabbat, we do consider it to be Rishut Harabim. Okay, I'm not telling you that you're gonna get karet. That only Hashem knows, but it's a machloket. But we because it's we're machmir, Shabbat.
Why,
know,
why,
but yeah.
why is it so early? Because not that amount of people don't pass by in the
Yeah, there's all kinds of issues, there's all kinds of things there, there's a lot of details about that. What makes something into a Reshut Harabim depends on the width of the street and how many people pass by, and also how it's arranged, the format of the streets,
Mhm.
all kinds of things going on there, all kinds of issues. There's a tshuva in the Yed Yomer, Rabbi has in the Chelek Tet about all this stuff. If you want to learn all these rules, you look over there, you get everything in your pocket.
Interesting. So when you're in the countryside,
Yeah.
there's no room. There's definitely not a lot of people walking anywhere there.
Right, but they may not do the trick because since it's connected to the road, which is big, the central road, they're all connected, so it's considered to be like one big system. You know what I mean? So it's not so pashut, not so simple. You have to know what you're talking about, like what's the situation. A lot of rules about that. Okay, so that's a different discussion. So anyway, right, as we said, maybe the rabbis will not go there in this case. It says Shehud Data Rabbi Magid. So it seems like the Rabbi Magid holds this way. Yosef. Because they wrote this din stam, ben talit to talit. They didn't make a differentiation between I talit and their talit. So it seems like they hold that it's all the same.
Mhm.
So then he goes on to say, Katab Mordechai. It says Mordechai. You got the place, by the way? Katab Mordechai. Katab Mordechai. I can help you
Yeah,
if you
I
want.
got it.
Okay, got it. Okay, so it says, Omer Harav Shlomo Darwish, whatever, right? So this rabbi says, Sheim nifsak leishmut shel talit b'Shabbat, that if his talit the string got cut on Shabbat, she'asur lelovsho, you're not allowed to wear it now. Achi takenoto until you fix it. Sheim lovsho, if he wears it over be'aseh, he's transgressing a positive commandment, right? Of what? Of not having tzitzit on your beged.
Mhm.
Besides the issue of Shabbat,
Right.
we also have that problem, right? The Shiv Ri, so it says the Ri answered the Lete, so it says not true. Oh, interesting, right? The Muchach Matin, like we learned from our Gemara, the Ifsik. Why? Because you see that even though the string broke, La Hava Shade Bekarmelit, he didn't take it off the Karmelit, the Rabbanan. That's very powerful. Look what it says, right? From that Gemara, you see that it's not true. Why? Because otherwise, you should have taken it off for that reason. The fact that he was breaking the mitzvah of tzitzit.
Was open at a time where
That's the Doraita. So you can't say it's the Rabbanan. You can't say that. Carmelit is the Rabbanan, but tzitzit is not the Rabbanan. Tzitzit is the Doraita.
Rabbi, in this case, well, there are times it was obligatory because they had to four their garments.
So we're talking about talit. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a suit jacket, right?
No, but for our
Yeah.
times.
We're talking about talit, same thing.
No, but if we're not wearing it, we're not obligated. We're not transgressing.
Oh yeah, but we're talking about the guy. What are we talking about over there? The guy was wearing it in the street, right? They were walking in the street somewhere,
Right.
right? So that's the case. So how can he tell him not to take it off? But he's transgressing the mitzvah of tzitzit.
Of not having it.
Exactly, not having tzitzit when you're wearing this beged.
Oh, right.
You understand?
Right. It's already on him.
Yeah, it's already on him. Yeah. So what's going on with that? So you should have been able to take it off because of that. Should have told him to take it off. Okay. So powerful stuff. Okay, so דרך אגב, די הפסיק לה והשדק וקרמית דרבנן, וכך נראה לירי דמצווה עשה ציצית אינו אלא להציל בו ציצית כשילבשנו. Oh, look what it says, interesting. So therefore, right, comes the Ri and says something powerful here. You see from this story, look how much they learned, the Rishonim, from these stories. My God, they glean out all the little details there, So it says, you learn from this story. By the way, that's the reason why I have to listen to the Rishonim, because they knew the Gemara much deeper than we do, like you can't compare our knowledge of the Gemara to theirs. It's a totally different, that's why we're not allowed to argue with the Rishonim, because if you knew how much better that person knew the Gemara than you, like, it's a joke. I mean, it's like you don't know what you're talking about. Like, so, people talking, about Kabbalah, this Kabbalah, first learn Talmud, what are you talking? You don't know Talmud, you don't know Poskim, you don't know Rishonim. What's it your business to talk about Kabbalah? Don't even say that word, What business do you have with that? You gotta first get deep into this stuff, and then we can talk about that later on. There's a story, this guy who runs a website, he's the grandson of the rabbi, Yaakov. So one time he told me, he's a good friend of mine, by the way, this guy. So one time he told me, he says, some guy went to the rabbi Maran, and told him, what happened was he finished the whole program. In other words, in the kollels over there, they have a program. First you learn Rabbanut, then Dayanut, you learn Eben Ezer, Choshen Mishpat, become a Dayan, become a rabbi. So there was one young guy, who finished the whole program. It takes about 15 years, 20 years. Finished the whole thing, Finished the whole thing. He passed all the tests, got tested, blah, 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 aced it, right? So he comes to the rabbi. He tells him, okay, rabbi, he says, now I finished all the program. He says, can I start learning Kabbalah? So the rabbi told him, he says, you need to take medicine. He says, go to the doctor. He has to prescribe some medicine for you. You're still not ready for that. That's in other words, what do you think? Just because you passed the tests now, that you learned all the Torah? That's what you think? It's a joke. So people today, they're all confused. There's such much confusion going on today. Okay, people don't know what's going on. So anyway, right? As we said, so the Re learns out from this story, right? That when we say there's a mitzvah aseh, positive commandment of tzitzit, it's only what? To put on tzitzit in order to wear it. You see this whole thing, what he's saying? To put on tzitzit in order to wear it. So what does that mean? I guess he's trying to say, we have to see a little bit further, but I guess he's trying to say, that once you already put it, you don't have the mitzvah anymore at that point. Until the next time you want to wear it. In other words, the mitzvah is renewed every time you want to put it on. When you want to put it on, you got to make sure you have the tzitzit. But once you put it, then it's mitzvah's over already. Interesting. Okay, we'll see where that goes. So that's exactly why, it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah. Look what it says. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, don't wear a beged, a clothing, which doesn't have tzitzit on the four corners. It doesn't say that. That's not the language that it uses. And it's not a coincidence, because that's not the way the mitzvah is. That's not the way it's arranged. That's not the way it's set up. Because then, for sure, it will be hadin imo. Then, for sure, you should have rebuked him about that. So then, what do you really have? You just have a mitzvah to put the tzitzit. But he says, nevertheless, it's not forbidden to wear the talit. Oh, that's interesting. So it's making a separation over here. In other words, you have a mitzvah to put the tzitzit. But regardless of that, there's no prohibition to wear the talit. That's what he's saying. Exactly. There's two different things. You know what I mean? Okay, if you didn't put tzitzit, you transgressed. In other words, you didn't put tzitzit. You transgressed a positive commandment. But it doesn't mean you can't wear it.
But didn't we say that as you're wearing it,
Yeah.
it's the mitzvah of tzitzit, it's constant.
So he doesn't hold this way, right? According to this opinion, which is taking from the Gemara, he's telling you, see from this Gemara, that's not like that. Otherwise, this rabbi should have rebuked him, he should have told him, listen, you got to take it off. Interesting. Okay, we'll see where that goes. So it says also there's another reason why he doesn't transgress. Look what it says. What's the reason why? Because he can't put it on Shabbat. He's not allowed to. He cannot make nuts on Shabbat. So there's no way for him to put it on Shabbat. To put it tzitzit. So therefore he's absolved. So interesting, right? But it says when it comes to the weekdays, though, he is transgressing.
As he's walking without it.
So what does that mean? So it says, Right. So every time he's wearing it, every moment that he wears it, he's transgressing a positive commandment. Okay. Why is that? Because he could do it, but on Shabbat he can't. So he's anus, right? He's forced.
So the opinion that it's a separate, the mitzvah is just putting it on.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he's saying different things over here, there's different facets of what he's saying here. All right, let's go on. You can't dwell on this stuff too much, you know what I mean? Like, just gotta get past through it, and that's the thing. One of the things I learned in Kollel, I was sitting there for 20 years, learning over there in Israel. The people who learn in this kind of, in this way, the Avrahim over here, who are becoming Talmidei Chachamim, they don't sit on every little, little word, and analyze every little word. You can't do that. You have to just run, You just have to to swallow, because otherwise you'll never get anywhere like that. You're just standing in one place, oh, well, these people, over here, they do, they sit there for 1 month, on one page, and, you can't get anything done like that, So that's why, we don't sit too much on this stuff. There was one guy that I was learning with, the same guy that I told you, from, there. And so one time he wanted to learn with Bet Yosef, So we sat and started doing Chabruta when I first came here, So he was asking so many questions, like why this, why that. If you ask questions like like this, we're never gonna get anywhere like that, Like how many questions can you ask, Like what he what it is. The problem is like this, that some people think learning Bet Yosef is like learning Gemara. It's not exactly the same thing, It's a different purpose, So you have to understand that. Over here, you're not analyzing the Gemara. You're just you wanna see where the Bet Yosef is taking the whole situation and where he's winding up. You know what I mean? Where he's going to.
Right.
Gemara is a different thing. There's a different purpose there. It's again that analysis over there, all that stuff. So it's two different things, a little bit. You have to understand that a little bit. Okay, so whatever. So right. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to complain. Just giving you some pointers because it's good to know these things. When you learn, you have to techniques a little bit. Okay, whatever. So people just they run. And by the way, there's a Gemara about this. Something very important Gemara, by the way. That the Gemara says like this. That really the best way to learn, is to learn little by little, and get every detail of the sugya, Go slowly, get every detail, like ask the questions, all the details, the words, everything. But then the Gemara says, it says the rabbis don't learn that way. You understand? So what does that mean? That's a very important thing to understand. In other words, the proper way to do it is like that, but the rabbis don't do it this way. You know why? Because they just swallow. They just take big chunks and swallow.
But they have good memory.
Not because of that. You know what it is? They realize that stopping on every little thing, it just doesn't pay off in the end. The dividends don't come in. You know what I mean?
It's too much.
You lose more than you gain. Right, exactly.
You're never gonna get
exactly. You're never getting anywhere like that. This is the problem, So a lot of people don't realize that, that because what happens is like this. I'll tell you, once you start to take it in, and just swallow everything. In the end, you get a lot of knowledge, it gets stored up in your head, and you just all of a sudden, you wake up after 20 years, you really know a lot of stuff, and if you wouldn't done it this way, you wouldn't have known all the material. So the thing is, that those questions that you had at the beginning, you could ask them later, later points, because first you got to just swallow it in. That's the way to do it. There's a chokhmah, there's this wisdom there. This wisdom. Okay, whatever, right? So anyway, right, getting back to what we said. So read this right. So with Shuvot it says Ashkenaziyot. So in Shuvot Ashkenaziyot, right? Matzati kelashon hazeh. It says I found this language over there. Responses of the Ashkenazim. It says over there, Sha'alta beni im nifsak echad me'atzitziyot. If one of the tzitziot got broken, im mutar litatef ulvarech b'Shabbat. So are you allowed to now put it on Shabbat and bless on it? Right? That's a question that they were asked. So he answers, right? If you bless on that, it's a bracha lebatala. The kaimalan, because we hold the arba tzitziot miakvot zedzel, because we hold like we said in the Gemara yesterday, machloket, but halacha is that all the 4 tzitzit are one holding back the other. In other words, it's a package deal. Either you got everything or you got nothing. That's the way it is. So when you're missing one, you're missing everything. That's the way it is. The Retin Chataki Rabbi Shmuel. So the halacha is like Rabbi Shmuel. Look what he says though. Nevertheless, if a person went to the shul, and then he finds, that some of the strings are broken. Why? Looks over there. He's got those good fluorescent lights over there. He sees well. The shul. All of a sudden he sees, something is wrong. So now he sees, right, that it's not according to halacha. The tzitzit, no good. So he says, but you know what it is? He's embarrassed to sit there in the shul without a talit. He looks like an idiot. You ever try to do that, by the way? Go to the shul and sit there without talit. Everybody tells you, talit. They all start, getting on your case. Where's your talit? You know what I mean? That's the way it is, right? So it's embarrassing. So he says, you know what? It's possible that you can put a talit without a bracha, as we already mentioned, right? Kavod habriot, dignity of humans, because of this reason. So don't bless on it; just put it on, and whatever, right? And do the best you can. The talit of like we find over there in that Gemara that we mentioned, Carmelit. It was Carmelit, the Rabbanan. Gadol kavod habriot. It says over there, right, that the dignity of humans is a very big thing. It's a big deal. That's the language, right? Nice, tshuva, very clear, right? Sums up the whole thing very well.
But in this case, you're transgressing the positive commandment.
Oh, so it's an interesting thing, right? So as we said, right, that according to this, it's only the Rabbanan here. This whole thing. Why is that? Because you can't put it on Shabbat, that you can't fix it on Shabbat, and you're in the shul, so you're not really carrying it, So therefore, right, there's really no problem.
But you're wearing it. You can take it.
Yeah, you're wearing it. You're anus. You're. There's no choice. In other words, you can't fix it.
But you can take it off.
Right, but we said you're not obligated to do that. Because it's only the Rabbanan.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
The Torah doesn't require you, as we said, right? According to this line of thinking, the Torah doesn't really require you to put tzitzit, when it's not possible. So therefore, You're not really transgressing anything here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the way so he pretty much sums up that whole idea here. He doesn't explain, but we already explained it before. Okay, so then it says Maran, unconditional. So it says Ve'eno. So it says Maran, I don't agree with this. Right? What's the reason why? So he says you can't compare one with the other. The Gemara is talking about being naked, shirtless, basically bare-chested. This here talking about just having your suit without a talit. So he says you can't learn one from the other. Interesting. Let's see how he passes in the Shulchan Aruch about this. By the way, sometimes what happens, right? Then he changes his mind. In other words, in the Bet Yosef, he says one opinion. And then in Shulchan Aruch he jumps to another opinion. In other words, you see that sometimes, so it doesn't surprise me sometimes. Here it says you shouldn't learn one from the other. Not the same thing. But in the Shulchan Aruch, all of a sudden change his mind and say, that's halacha, I've seen this before. I'm not telling you it's going to be like this here, but it doesn't surprise me when I see things like this. It's rare, but it happens sometimes.
But in this case, it would be his own rationale versus taking the
right. But sometimes he changes his mind, because he wrote the Bet Yosef before the Shulchan Aruch, So sometimes in Shulchan Aruch he writes different, than the Bet Yosef. There's a whole discussion, by the way, in the poskim. What do we do in a case like that? How do we paskin? We paskin like the Bet Yosef or the Shulchan Aruch? There's all kinds of discussions about that. The general rule is, that when there's a machlok, it's tirah between Bet Yosef and Shulchan Aruch, we look at Shulchan Aruch. Since it was written later, so it's like the last word, like basically,
Right.
you know what I mean? But there are some cases where some rabbis say not to do it this way, because they say that it's like they have all kinds of reasons why. Sometimes where they say that the Bet Yosef is being more like inclusive and whatever. This is just being very more simplistic. All kinds of things like that, But anyway, right? As a general rule, though, we go like the Shulchan Aruch,
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is, that really, in other words, you may think, if you look at the Shulchan Aruch Bet Yosef, you think there's a machlok, a stira there, but if you really look at it carefully, there's no stira. Just you have to know how to, miyashev, to reconcile. You know what I mean? The apparent discrepancies there.
I see.
You know what I mean? That's the whole thing. So yeah, whatever.
Takes time.
Yeah, you need some experience for that. The rabbi brings down a lot of cases like this, his writings. And by the way, this is the whole thing, you should know, by the way. What's the difference between, that's why the Talmidim of the Rabbi Maran, they're the best in this generation. You know why? Because the rabbi wrote everything down. He teaches you everything, Nobody else does this. There's no other author in this generation who wrote down the Torah like the rabbi did. You know what I mean? He wrote 54 books, and each one of them is like big, huge, like huge. So when you learn the Torah of the rabbi, you're learning the whole Torah, basically, But when you're learning, if you don't know the Torah of Maran, and you're just like learning Kitzur books, you don't understand what's going on. You just don't get it. You're missing all the background information, So that's not the good way to learn. So it's what I'm trying to tell you is, it's a very important thing to know one thing, that a person has to learn the Torah of the Gedol Ador of each generation. You have to learn his Torah, because Hashem sent him to teach you the quality of that generation. What you got to learn his Torah. Even if you, by the way, even if you have the chutzpah to argue, sometimes we do, But first you got to learn what he's saying. Before you argue. If you're going too fast and trying to argue before you understand what he's saying, that means you're wrong. That's if you know what I mean. So that's the way it is, Yeah. There's a whole Gemara about this in Bava Batra and also in the Zohar Kadosh. That in the time of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Gamliel, that generation, right? The Tanaim. So Rabbi Eliezer was a Gedol Ador. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkenus, that was his name. He was a Gedol Ador, But the problem was he got into a machloket with the Chachamim and they excommunicated him. There was a whole discussion over there. It talks about that in Bava Metzia. So what happened was that once they excommunicated him, they stopped learning from him. He was just sitting in his house, by himself, and nobody was coming to learn with him. So what happened was, in the end, the day that he died, so then all of a sudden the rabbis came to see him. They wanted to pay their respects to him. Can you imagine? So what happened was that he saw all the chachamim. They came, to pay their respects. So he asked, the chachamim. He told them. He said, "Why did you come to learn Torah from me?" He says, "How much Torah do I know? You didn't learn from me this Torah that I know. Nobody knows." So then he looks at Rabbi Akiva. He tells him like this. It's about the Zohar Kadosh. Put down the Gemara also. He looks at Rabbi Akiva. He tells him, he says, "Akiva," he says, "why didn't you come to learn from me all this time that I was in my house?" He was his Talmid, by the way, Rabbi Akiva. So he tells him, he says, "Rabbi," he says, "I'm sorry, he says, I was busy with my students, I didn't have time to come and learn with you." So when he heard that, he got really angry, Rabbi Eliezer, So he cursed Rabbi Akiva, He said, "This one is going to die a very tragic death," he said, That's exactly what happened to him. The curse came true, as usual, right? When the Chacham curses, it always comes true. So that's exactly what happened. So the point, the question is over there, a couple of things, like, first of all, why was he dafka so makpid on Rabbi Akiva, not the other rabbis? You know what I mean? Why did he pick on him? You know what I mean? He only cursed him, he didn't curse the other ones.
More potential, maybe.
Good point, right? You know what? Because they say Rabbi Akiva was the only one, pretty much, that had the power to soak up his Torah. There was nobody else who was able to do that. He was such a genius. He was the only one who had the power to do that. So therefore, he was specifically angry at him. You know what I mean? So what happened was, it says over there in the Zohar Kadosh, incredible, that that day that he died, he tried to teach him everything, that he had to know. They went on a marathon, study marathon. Can you imagine? They did a one-day marathon to try to teach him everything. So what are we talking about here? It was mostly Kabbalah. Understand? There was Kabbalah that Rabbi Eliezer knew, that Rabbi Akiva didn't know. Nobody knew in the generation. Can you imagine? So what happened was he tried to teach him the Sodot, the secrets of the Torah, Shira Shirim, the Kabbalah of this book, Kabbalah of this. Every book has a Kabbalah, Each book in the Bible has its own Kabbalah, has its own, secrets.
Mhm.
So he tried to teach him some Kabbalot. So it says in the Zohar Kadosh, in the end, he wasn't able to give him everything. It was impossible, one day, He taught him a lot. Like, you can't imagine how much he taught him that day. He taught him a tremendous amount. He also taught him some halachot that he didn't know also as well. Some complicated halachot. So, and then he just, passed away, So you know what happened, right? That because they didn't come to him to learn his Torah, that Torah got lost forever.
Didn't
You
come
know,
back and
didn't know when's it gonna come back. Har Sinai is only one time. You understand? You don't get the Torah twice. It's only on Har Sinai. So what happened was that perhaps when Rabbi Shimon came, he retrieved those secrets back. It's possible. He got them from Shamayim, That was the big thing about Rabbi Shimon, He got back a lot of secrets that we lost. You understand? So it's possible that this happened, but meanwhile, until that time came, the Rabbi Shimon came, the Torah, that Torah got lost.
Would you say Rabbi
Yeah.
Hashem's will? It's everything.
Of course, it's all from Hashem's will, but what I'm trying to tell you is like this, that you see from there, it's a mitzvah to learn the Torah of the Gedol Ador, And the Maran was a Gedol Ador, that's the thing, So if you don't learn his Torah, I'm telling you, and the people who don't learn, I can see them, like they're dull-minded, they don't know nothing. They don't know anything about halakha. You know what I mean? That's it's unfortunate. The ones that were not zocheh to sit with Maran and learn with him, their halakhic mind is jellyfish, jelly beans. That's what it's all about. Whoever sat with Maran, he became a chacham. That's the way it was. I met. So you see from there, right? But that's an important concept in Torah. Okay, let's see the Shulchan Aruch, and we'll finish there. Some words of Musar from.
I'm gonna go get some more Hebrew dictionaries.
Yeah. He's also working on that. Jonathan, you're the guy you saw today. I told him to work on that too. I can't tell you. Anybody who asks me, I answer him.
I need to find one of those Hebrew meetups. Just
Yeah.
to pick up the language fast.
So
Who speaks the language here?
yeah, of course, absolutely. That's the first thing. It becomes like a barrier, It's like a mechitza. You can't get through. You can't get through. There's no question about that.
Rabbi, how long did it take you to pick it up?
If I remember correctly, it was like 3-4 years, of like daily work, like daily, 3-4 hours a day
To learn Hebrew?
to really pick it up,
And you went in
Hebrew and
learning-
Aramaic, the whole package, right?
And you went
And
in
then modern
learning-
Hebrew took like another year, when I went to Israel, I picked up modern Hebrew.
Oh, that was not in Israel?
Huh?
The 3-4 years were not in Israel?
No, it was here.
You learned Hebrew.
Yeah.
Did you speak to somebody? Or just learning the?
I used to listen to, some Israeli rabbis here, once in a while, hear them,
But not speaking. Like,
No conversational stuff. Not so much. Just listening. But listening is the first step, that's the thing. The first step is to listen. Then you start to spring out something, something comes out of your mouth. You know what I mean? It's like regurgitates.
right.
That's what it is, right? That's the way it is. Yeah, of course, yeah. Okay, so let's look at Shulchan Aruch and we're done. Gimel. We finished the Siman. That's good. So it says like this, right? That you got the place. Im nodalo b'Shabbat. If you found out on Shabbat, right? As we said, right? The famous story. Keshuk b'Karmelit. He's in the Karmelit, right? He's on. He's in the Forest Park, right? Whatever. Shatalit she'alav pasul. Shatalit is pasul. Lo yasirenu me'alav ad she'yigil lebeto. Don't take it off until you get home.
Question there,
Yeah,
when he's passing maybe the Shulchan Aruch on the way home,
that's going to be a problem. He's going to have to drop it.
right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
As he gets out of the.
Absolutely, he's going to have to drop it off. Yeah, drop it off and run home. You know, with your bare chested run. Take a video of that, right? Take a video to see. It's going to be a nice video. Okay, he's running. He's running. Okay, so right as we said. Why? Because of dignity of human beings, right? It's a great thing. Human dignity. Right? So it says in the Ramah, talit katan. So it's even his talit katan, which is under his clothing. And tzarich lipshot. You don't have to take it off, it says. It's the same thing applies as the Ramah. If one of the tzitzit got broken, and he's embarrassed to sit without talit, so he doesn't agree with the Bet Yosef, right? So you can put it without bracha. Mikoach kavod habriot. So that's interesting, right? That here he says in the parentheses comes from Bet Yosef, right? Because there was a tshuva like that over there. But the truth is, Maran himself didn't agree with that. He doesn't mention that, right? But Davka b'Shabbat the asur la'asot tzitziot. Why? So that's only in Shabbat, says the Rama, because it's not allowed to make tzitziot. On Shabbat, you can't do nuts on Shabbat, right? You can't do. Aval bechol, but it says when it comes to Yom Chol, weekdays, gavna asur, it's going to be asur, right? You're going to take it off, right? So what else can you do, right? You got to fix it, whatever it is, right? Something like that. Okay, very good. So I guess we'll finish there. Chazak u'baruch, Laila Tov. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, ladies. God bless you.
Thank you, Kavod Harav.
All the best.
Good night. Leila Tov.
All right, good. We got 2 guys and 2 girls. That's what we're holding today.
Yeah, who's the other guy?
You and me, and
Oh,
that's it. Okay.
Rabbi, you're the